Welcome to Gone Fishing, a show diving into the cybersecurity threats that surround our highly connected lives. Every human is different. Every person has unique vulnerabilities that expose them to potentially successful social engineering. On this show, we'll discuss human vulnerability and how it relates to unique individuals. I'm Connor Swalm, CEO of FinSecurity, and welcome to Gone Fishing. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gone Fishing. I'm your host, Connor, CEO at Fin, and I am joined by the wonderful Tara Rummer, the Director of Community and Events at ImmyBot. Tara, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Connor?
If I were any better, I'd be a twin. New year, new me. Let's just get all the platitudes out of the way so we can...
New year, same me. I'm not changing this year. I decided.
One of the worst parts about the new year is that every gym is incredibly crowded. While it's great to see everyone's trying to improve their lives, I'm just like, come on. I don't want to spend an hour working out with 30 minutes of it just waiting for something to open up. I just want to get there and get out. So
exactly. My husband and I are actually avoiding the gym this week and next week. So I've got like my little at-home treadmill and my weights just because I'm like, I'll just wait for it to die off a little bit.
That's smart. I'll have to get my own gym at some point, but we'll see.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I have one of these little walking treadmills that you put under your desk. And if you have a standing desk, I mean, I walked 4 miles the other day while doing emails and then meetings.
It's actually not a bad idea at all because I work from home every day. So no workouts involved. Yeah. So today we're talking about imposter syndrome. What it is, what to do with it, why it exists. I don't know. We can get a little philosophical if we need to. But in your mind, what is imposter syndrome?
So I would say that it's having, the background in an industry and having basically the knowledge, but still thinking someone's going to find out that you're like a fraud or that you don't really know what you're doing or something of that nature. So, and it's something I struggle with constantly, even though I've been in an MSP for 11 years. Been ridiculous.
What for those that are listening or watching that don't know you, what is a little bit of your background in the MSP arena?
Yeah, so I worked for Immense Networks, which spun off ImmyBot. So I have been with Immense for 11 years as of last month, and I was hired on basically as like an admin assistant to Brett and Darren, and then they realized I was capable of a whole bunch more, and I ended up becoming over the years our VP of operations. So I took it from kind of the Wild West to a pretty high operational maturity level MSP with our processes in place. We're able to triple our revenue by doing that, increase our efficiency, client satisfaction. Staff stayed on. Like a lot of MSPs have, you're going to turn over your whole staff roughly in every 3 to 4 years is the average. So you lose like 25 to 30% of people a year. And our average right now for employees is 8 years. So we really don't lose people. We try to, do everything we can to do it right. And over that time, I've gained just kind of a ton of knowledge. And I still suffer with this going, I don't know what I'm doing. Figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've seen a lot of people talk about. There's a ton of books written about it. There's a lot of help and how-to guides. I mean, I don't know about you, but reading those books has never helped me feel less imposter syndrome. It's always like the thing that I tell people who are dealing with it is like, it never goes away. You just get better at dealing with it. It never decreases.
Exactly. And I think I've never read any of the books, so I'm going to be honest. But I think it's also being so young when I got in this industry, right? And then I was thrust into a leadership role where I'm like, oh my God, I'm 26, 27 years old, kind of like you, I'm sure. And it's like, some of these people are older than me. Maybe they know more. They've been in this longer. And I'm not technical. So I say that. But coming in, I have a background in art history. I have an art history degree. So I'm sitting here going, my background is completely different than all these people. And you're expecting me to tell them what to do and how to lead them to, come follow me and do what we need. It's nuts.
When do you find yourself most often feeling like an imposter? Is there like a specific scenario when someone asks you to do something specific? What is it for you?
I think it's when I'm put on the spot with things. So one thing that's huge for me is I am not big on answering questions immediately, which is funny being on here. I like to think things out and I like to write things down. So when somebody does that, I'm like, oh my God, if I don't answer right or correctly right now, they're going to think, less of me or think I don't know what I'm doing. So that's when it really does sneak up. And it's not that I have to have the right answer. It's that I need the time to think about it before giving what is blatantly wrong. I think.
Everyone always needs to do a quick little Google search. It's like, do I actually know what I'm talking about? And then give your answer. That's what I do. Yes. I'm like, hold up. And I'll Google right in front of somebody. It's like, I just need to make sure of this one little thing before I give you the exact wrong answer real quick.
I always say, let me confirm one thing before I respond to this. Like that's a huge thing I do actually.
Yeah. How do you deal with that personally? This imposter syndrome sneaking up. And I would say the worst thing that you could let imposter syndrome do is degrade your ability to like do cool things, to try and do bigger and better things, not only in your own company, but in your own life, whether that's your personal life, with your relationships, whatever. And I see a lot of people who feel this imposter syndrome. They at least talk about, well, yeah, I didn't go take these risks and I didn't go do all these other things because I didn't feel like I had the ability to do it. It's like, ooh, that's imposter syndrome right there. So
100%. I think a lot of getting past it, and I still struggle with it, let's be honest. Most of us do, I think. A lot of it was I got in a peer group and I got to know people in our industry because it's great to have my friends that work in, like my best friend is, she's a COO of a jewelry company. That's fine. It's still a very different industry than what we work in. So having my industry peers go, no, like you're on the right track. We all feel this. And just keeping those conversations open because I know when I'm starting to feel it, and I don't know about you, but I feel burnout immediately or I panic. Like I'm big on panic attacks, apparently. They used to be one of my favorite things. But just having that person that I can text or just talk to and get myself out of that situation. I actually wear a bracelet usually that says your anxiety is lying to you. It says it on the inside towards myself as just like okay, let's regroup here. Let's think of the good things you've done. Like this one thing you might not know, but let's not discount everything else because that's what tends to happen, right? You start forgetting everything you've already done and like all the work you've put in. And people are like, oh, I lucked out into getting here. I've definitely said, I'm just doing what I can, like downplaying what you do, right? So I think having industry peers, and I'm huge. I've said this before. You've probably heard it in just our conversations. I'm huge on metrics and tracking success. So that helps me helps me stay confident in the things I'm doing, I guess, is knowing that it's trackable.
That makes sense. If you're tracking something, it feels like I liked playing with Legos when I was growing up. It always felt like the most satisfying thing was being able to flip a page on that Lego book. It's like, all right, I have 14 more steps and then I'm done. It's like, I would count this. I wouldn't look at the thing and say, how close am I to getting done? It's like, I have exactly 14 steps and then I'm done. And you could kind of measure your own progress and your own success in that way. And the way I like to phrase it is it's objective. It's not you feeling some way about your success. It's data that you're measuring, saying something about it. You got to be careful about misinterpreting things, but above and beyond that, it's like pretty much just raw data.
That's exactly what it is. And then, another thing is when I'm feeling it, I tend to be very risk adverse, and I can tell because I'm in my imposter syndrome going, well, I probably shouldn't do that, or I don't have the background to do that. And like, I can credit Brett and Darren with this, the two owners of both of the companies. They are super into risk. They like run towards it. I feel like most people who start their own businesses, that's just who they are. And so they constantly push me into like unfamiliar territory. Like working for the MSP, we talked about me potentially taking like a CEO role in it. And I was like, yeah, I could totally do that. I can run this thing in my sleep. Like I know all of these things. And Darren's like, I think you would be bored in probably 45 minutes. And I was like, yeah, probably. And so that's why we started transitioning me towards Immy and doing these things that I'm very much not comfortable with. You know, I love going to events. I like getting to talk to people like you and you know, partners and potential partners and whoever. I mean, I am aggressively friendly. I know everybody loves that I say that, but
That's
I'll
a
talk to a
perfect way to
chair if
put
I
it.
thought it would talk back to me. Yeah.
If I see you talking to a chair, I'm going to start worrying. It's like, oh, wait a second. Tara's going crazy again.
It's fine. I talk to myself all day long. But yeah, they're pushing me out of my comfort zone, I think. And one of my things I went to them with was like, you know, I've never done these things before that you're asking me to do. It concerned me. And they're like, we've always given you the runway to do what you needed, right? And I'm like, yeah, they're like, we're not going to change that now. So I think a lot of that comes from them and just kind of pushing me a little bit further than I'm comfortable because that's where growth happens.
Yeah. That is. And I think a lot of people, they grow up and I'm air quoting for those of you who are just listening. I air quote in 7 times a podcast episode, so forgive me. A lot of people grow up thinking that uncomfortability is the result of, like, I made some mistake. I shouldn't be feeling like this. And I guess you brought up people who start businesses and risk aversion and whatnot. Is people who start businesses tend to view that uncomfortability as the opportunity. It's like there's something messed up in our brains and the circuitry that's like, yeah, this uncomfortability. Oh, that's progress. It's very unintuitive. And talking about Googling something before I make a statement, I Googled how many gamblers, people who go to Las Vegas or gamble online, actually make money. And the answer is 5% of online gamblers make a profit, and slightly more in-person gamblers make a profit. And businesses fail far more often than 5%, like way more than 95% of businesses just end up going under. So it's absolutely true. It's like, oh, risk? It's like, what's that? I've never heard of it. It's like there is just this lack of perception of risk in a lot of ways that is super uncomfortable to everyone, including ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, but having that person that, like, you've met Darren, yeah. I don't know that risk has ever made that man uncomfortable.
He won't even play the board game.
I would say when he jumped out of an airplane, I think he was uncomfortable with that risk because he basically kissed the ground afterwards, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so I mean, I'm getting through it basically. After 11 years, you know, I finally have really a name for what was, I don't want to say wrong with me, but what I was having issues with.
Did it shock you when you started talking about it, how many other people feel the exact same way?
So it did, because I don't know if you still feel this way, but I mean, I'm in my mid-30s, and for some reason, when I was a kid, adults seemed like they had everything together. And the older I get, I'm like, nobody has anything together. Everybody's just figuring it out. And then, you know, talking to some friends in the industry, they're going through very similar things and joining like the peer groups I've joined. We all are fighting the same battles, and there's really no reason to be. And we're all questioning ourselves too, right? So having that group who's like, oh no, I've dealt with that. Like, I have that same issue. And I think for a lot of people, at least in like my position, I've noticed in operations, a majority of those people in operations and people operations, they're not technical. So a lot of that, once again, is that just the reminder that, yeah, they're all dealing with this. I mean, people that you wouldn't think are. I'm not going to name names, but I had a conversation with someone who's been in this industry a very long time, like 2 months ago, and I was deep in it. And they were like, you know, that self-doubt comes in, and it still comes in for me pretty regularly, but you have to get past it, and you have to remember that it's not you, it's something that's kind of chemically off in your brain, I guess. And that you are doing all these great things. And that you're going to land on your feet pretty much no matter what, if you have the drive, you have the ambition. And so, yeah, it's good.
No, that's true. It's like this delicate balance between imposter syndrome and just absolute egotistical, maniacal behavior. It's like, if you didn't have that little voice, it's like, hold on, do you really know what you're doing? It's like, how big would my head get? Would I fit through any doors anymore? I don't know.
You have to understand humility versus imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
You can be humble without, having this inner turmoil, I guess, with yourself, not knowing what you're doing.
The subtle difference between the two I've phrased to my friends and colleagues like this is if you let fear make your decisions versus using fear to make your decisions. It's like fear is a tool, like built into your brain because, I don't know, like panthers would kill you in your sleep before we had organized society. I don't know. I'm just looking for a random example here. And it's like, but if you let fear now make your decisions, you'll make more wrong decisions. But if you use fear in your decision-making process to try to understand, why do I feel this way? Are there risks that I'm unaware of that I'm not verbalizing to the people that are helping me? It's like, it can be incredibly valuable, but that slight difference is the difference between humility and imposter syndrome.
I love that. I've never thought about it that way, but I do like that.
Yeah. It's, when you combine imposter syndrome with a healthy dose of introspection, it has a tendency to depression, but once you get past that, it's like it's smooth sailing, right?
We don't need depression.
Yeah.
Let's keep it away from there.
What you mentioned having a group of peers that can help you who have been there. I'm going to say been there, done that, as you had said. What are some other ways that you find this imposter syndrome being alleviated, or how do you deal with it in your daily life?
So I think in daily life, it's really pushing myself because I like to live in my little bubble, and you got to get out of that little bubble every so often and do what you don't like or what feels awkward. I used to hate feeling awkward. Like that was the worst for me. And now I throw myself into every awkward situation I probably can. Conversations. And I think it's something it's probably always in the back of my head, but I don't want to say I ignore it, but you have to kind of ignore it. You have to address it and say, hey, this isn't real. And then kind of move on. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. For folks that are listening that, if you're dealing with it, I always go back to two things that I try to remember. Is one, try to remember anything embarrassing about somebody else in your life. And it's incredibly hard. It's like there's this internal perception that, everyone's going to see my mistakes and they're going to judge me for it and I should be embarrassed. It's like, wait a second. It's like, people care so much more about themselves that they don't even remember anything you've done. You remember it all, right? It keeps you up at night, but nobody else remembers that. And the second thing is along the lines of what you said earlier. It's like, yeah, these people don't know everything. They aren't at the finish line that I think they're at. They're all just like me. They don't have their shit together 100%. I don't either. Okay. It's like, this is normal. It's like you begin to normalize it. So
it's normal. And Darren always says to be like a duck. Because I would say something to him and, we've worked together for so long that we would kind of butt heads and I would go the next day. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that thing I said yesterday. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, he just would not remember. He's like, you have to understand, things just roll off of me. Like they were eating at me and not at him. So I completely agree with everything you just said. Like
for folks who wanted to connect with you online or learn more about ImmyBot, what would you suggest they go? Where would you suggest they go or do?
Definitely on LinkedIn. I'm on there pretty regularly. And actually, one of my goals for the new year is to be on there a little more because I'm super inconsistent with my posting. So Tara Rummer Ashley on LinkedIn. I'm on the ImmyBot stuff or trummer@immy.bot. Pretty simple.
Awesome. For folks listening or watching, we'll have links to all that in the show notes so you can connect with Tara and reach out if you want to connect. Tara, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. It was a blast chatting.
Yeah. Hope to see you soon.
I will see you soon. See you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to Gone Fishing. If you want to find out more about high-quality security awareness training campaigns, how to launch them in ways that actually engage employees to change their habits, then check us out, FinSecurity, at finsec.io. That's PHINSEC.io. Or click all of the wonderful links in our show notes. Thanks for fishing with me today, and we'll see you next time.